I want to lead today talking about the real estate stats for March of 2019. We talk about them every time that they get released to let people know what's going on in the market, to keep them updated on what we're seeing in Tampa Bay's real estate statistics. And so March 2019 came out, and we had a couple months in a row where late last year and then in January of this year we saw the average sale price and the number of home sales drop year over year. So January and December, I think it was, of this year, the number of home sales we had in our market was a little bit lower than it was last year. Not a lot, but a little bit. And then 2 months went by and it picked back up where we saw increased home sales. Well, March, it dropped again. So it's a sign that we're in a stabilizing market. Prices aren't, and we're not seeing huge fluctuations in anything, but the market is starting to stabilize. It's starting to make a really slow turn towards likely an eventual buyer's market in what I would guess is a few years, just because real estate takes so long to shift. But just to break it down, last March, for example, we had 3,243 sales in March of 18. In March of 19, we had 3,089. It's not a huge drop, but still a drop, about 5% drop in the total number of home sales. The average sale price last year in Tampa was $269,725. This year it was $268,756. So to put that into perspective, very, very minimal drop, more or less kind of a stabilizing, flatlining, kind of leveling out, so to speak. And I think our market has needed that for a while because we have seen such low inventory and such, it's been such a drastic seller's market. And we've talked on the show, and Robert Johnson, our president, has come on, in the last couple of shows and talked about how, we still get bidding wars on listings, but instead of getting 24 offers, we might get 5. So there's not as much rampant demand as there was. And I think we're hopeful that interest rate changes will continue to foster that. But some other stats, 2.9 months of inventory, still really low seller's market. I mean,
right.
It is still a very low inventory, a drastic seller's market, but it's starting to make that move where we went probably 4 or 5 years where every single month we saw an increase in the number of sales and the average sale price year over year. It was like January 17 was better than January 16, which was better than January 15, which is better than January 14, and so on and so on. And this is the first kind of slowing of that trend where we're starting to bounce back and forth between an increase in the average sale price or a decrease, and then an increase in the number of home sales or a decrease. But most of the increases or decreases are relatively nominal. We're not talking huge swings.
Yeah.
But we've seen appreciation for so long, and now it looks like that's starting to slow.
And I don't think it's anything that we should be alarmed about either.
No, definitely not.
A couple months ago, it was like, oh, the real estate market's crashing. It's not. I mean, it's
No.
a $1,000 difference in average sales price, for instance, is nothing.
And again, I suspect that we'll see kind of the same thing happen for the next 2 years, where it'll just start to even out, where maybe we get to 4 or 5 months of inventory, which frankly is probably a healthier market, because then you have less buyers jumping out of the market. You have sellers who have spent the last couple of years hesitating to sell their house because they were afraid they couldn't find anything to buy. So all of that, all that extra demand can cause problems too. It can cause problematic transactions, and then it can cause people to jump out of the market. So because real estate is such an emotional sale, that people will simply just not want to deal with the hassle of losing out on bidding war after bidding war. So this stabilization is actually, I think, for long term, really, really healthy, and I think it's what the market needs.
Yeah, I was going to say the part you mentioned. A lot of buyers get frustrated when they lose out on multiple offers, especially first-time home buyers. It's very emotional for a lot of them, and sometimes they take it personal, and it gets them to just, well, maybe I should continue renting. So,
yeah.
With a more stable market, the hopes are that doesn't happen as often. You're not getting the 20-plus offers on every home, so
yeah.
It makes it a little bit easier for them to get
Interestingly, though, homes are still selling, very fast, 66 days. Compared to sometimes last year where it was in the 50s,
right.
In terms of days on market. So it's not as if we're seeing some drastic changes in the market. More just kind of a leveling off and a just balancing out. I think is probably the key to it. And it's certainly healthy, but still 3,000 home sales in a month is still really, really strong. Keep in mind that we could go back to 2017, 2016, 2015, 2014. And in those years, we might have cracked 3,000 home sales once during the summer. So we're still, March was still a really strong month. It was just slightly off compared to last year's numbers. Now, Sarasota, Manatee, that's a different story. We've talked about that. Tampa is unique in that it has a couple of what we consider really multiple real estate markets within one. But Sarasota has its own board of realtors, and in Sarasota, Manatee, they do their own statistical analysis. And we've seen a trend there where the average sale price and the number of homes sold has been on a continual decline for about 6 months. In March of 19, that trend continued. We saw 1,557 sales compared to 1,620 in 2018. We saw an average sale price of $368,525 compared to $393,223 last year. It's a little bit different in terms of its seasonality as well. Sarasota, a lot of Sarasota County is second homes, vacation homes, luxury purchases, and so they peak up. They have more activity in winter months than we do. So, for example, they still have more activity in the summer, but there's not as big of a difference between their February or March as there is in their June and July, like it is in Tampa with all the family moves. But 95% list to sell price ratio, 83 days it takes for a home to sell, and they're hovering around 5 months of inventory. So they're again. March was a recovery for them though, because they only had about 1,000 home sales in February, so it was a big jump from February to March, but still not the slightly off from last year's numbers. And that's been a trend where in Tampa we've kind of seen it bounce back and forth. In Sarasota, it's been in that trend of heading more towards a buyer's market. So that's your Sarasota and Tampa real estate statistical update when we aren't on